Hi, this is Craig with Digital Images. I'm going to go through the software operation of the YAG laser. Once the mechanical setup has been completed, starting at the desktop on the laptop, you're going to look for the icon that says SW Pro. Open up the application by double-clicking on it. You might possibly get a message that says lens setting, firmware set to 163. Just click OK to click through that. That'll bring you up to the desktop for the YAG laser. Two things I want to familiarize you first with is on the left-hand side is a toolbar, which consists of primarily, if you do a mouse over, you'll see linear text. In that location, that's primarily the only tool that you'll need on the left side. The other icons on the top that you'll need to familiarize yourself is going to be the import for photo, and if we scroll to the right, invert color, you'll have to be familiar with. Coming over to the right is the positioning, and the last tool on the right will be engrave. For this exercise, we're going to start out simply engraving text onto a dog tag. So what we're going to do is start over on the left-hand side, mouse over linear text, click on it, and then move your cursor to the desktop anywhere that you want and click again, and that will create a default text box that says linear text. If you want to edit that, what you're going to do is mouse over, put the mouse on over linear text, double click it, and that'll bring up your edit text properties. So for the sake of this example, we want to change the word linear text. Click and drag with your mouse and highlight it where it says linear text, and you can re-edit it, and you can say, let's say this, we're going to say Mike. At that point, if we want, we can change the font. In this case, I'll scroll down and I'll change it to stencil. And when we first set up for the event, let's get these settings, let's do the alignment so everything's always centered. That'll just make it a little bit cleaner. Come down and just hit OK. So notice that we have Mike now in the center of the screen. At this point, if we go up to the top and we put the mouse over positioning, click once, what you're going to notice is inside the laser, inside the cabinet, that's the red positioning laser, which is completely safe, and that's exactly where Mike would be engraved. Now, if it's too high or too low or too small, too big, we can now resize it and reposition it. So now let me go back to the desktop. And if you notice the grid, the grid on the desktop pretty well correlates with, to some extent, inside the cabinet. If you move Mike down to the bottom of your screen, you then have to go and turn positioning off, turn it back on again, and if you come back to the laser, we've now moved it down closer towards the front door, the leading edge. Now, if we took a dog tag currently the way that Mike is resized, and we position it, let me get a, oh, it's okay. You notice that it's much smaller than the size of the dog tag. It's actually, that would be too small. So let's go back to the desktop, and grabbing one of the highlight boxes on the corner, click and drag, and we can make it taller, longer. You can readjust the size, and let's make it about proportional. There's Mike. And yes, you could be a little bit off the edge there. That'll be closer to the front door. come to the top of the screen, turn positioning off, turn it back on, and now notice that we've gotten a little bit bigger. Still not big enough as it relates to the dog tag. So let's do it one more time. And it's more of a get a feel for each dog tag is going to be about 1, 2, 3, 4 squares in general. So let's try that right now. Turn positioning off, back on. Now if we come over, you'll see that the size, and it's going to engrave it exactly wherever you place this. So be careful that you're not on an angle and that it's, positioned nicely in the center with nice margins. Exactly where the red laser is where it's going to engrave. So at this point, with the dog tag positioned where you want it to engrave, close the door. At the top of your toolbar, come over and mouse over where it says engrave and click on engrave. And you should hear that sound and visually see Mike being engraved. The process takes about 10 seconds. We open the door and you can see the finished result of Mike on the dog tag. Now, if you go in and edit the name, and it's Mike Anderson, and you say OK, notice how long it is, and if we simply clicked on position, it's going to be way too big for the dog tag. So you've got two choices. You can click and drag this to about the correct size, but that would be marginally acceptable. It would just squeeze the letter. So that's one option. And the other option is to go back, double click on Mike, open up the edit box, and put a line break. So you put Mike and Anderson on 2 different lines, say OK, and obviously what we're going to need to do is reposition it and then resize it, and you'll see here a much better result. Now we go back up to positioning. Every time you edit the text or move it, it's imperative you turn positioning off, turn it back on, come back over to the laser, and now you can put the dog tag in, align it so the margins are all correct, close the door, come back over, put the mouse over engrave, and there's the finished result. Now, that is for text if guests want text. If guests want photo, basically what you're going to be doing is you are going to take a photo on the camera using an SD card, take 5, 10, 15, 20 photos, and then move the images from the SD card to a folder on the desktop of the laptop. Once the images are on the desktop, you're going to use go to the toolbar and where it says import, and you click on import, and then using standard Windows protocol, you are going to find the folder, find the image. In this case, I'm going to grab an image from this folder, and I can certainly preview them. So I will grab this image right here by double-clicking it, and now the image comes in. Notice that we have the image and we also have the text from the previous dog tag. In the upper right-hand corner, you can toggle switches. We have image 1 and linear text. If we're now doing images, you must uncheck linear text, and that will remove the text. So you could toggle back and forth. So you could turn off image, that gets rid of image, click on linear text, that'll bring the text back. So you only need to keep one linear text open for the entire event, because you can simply go in and change the name from Mike Anderson and then to Sue, say OK, resize it, you're now ready for Sue, and then if you want to do an image, go back and import a new image. Now, you only need one linear text. However, every time you're done with an image, you must delete it. And the way to delete it would be highlight it by clicking on the image and then just simply hitting on the keyboard delete. And that will delete the image, and it'll remove it from your menu in the upper right-hand corner. So now let's go back and import the image. Now, first of all, the size is, there's two things you can do. You can click and drag it, okay, as I've done here, or what might be easier is if you go to Element Properties in the lower right-hand corner, you have Element Property tab, and right next to it you have Marketing Properties tab. Those are the only two tabs you need to be familiar with. Under Element Properties, if you come down and you see width, right now it's at roughly 61 point something. Let's just go ahead and find a comfortable number for the width of the dog tag, which let's say it's going to be about 20. Press enter, and that's that's probably even too big, so let's play with it. We'll come down to 18, and that's probably a better number that we can work with on the dog tag. Let's bring it down. Let's click and drag the image to the closer to the bottom to the center, closer to the front door, easier to work with. If the image is all the way at the top and the back, you're reaching into the laser. So now, with that image bottom center, and you've resized it with the width of 18. In fact, I might even change it down to 17. Go to the toolbar on the top. It's imperative. Every photo you engrave, you have to click on Invert Color. When you click on it, it's going to invert the image to a mirror image. After you've inverted it, simply go over to Position. That will turn on the positioning laser, the red alignment laser, and then you can put your dog tag in. And don't position it. Don't position it too high or too low or crooked. Kind of position it right in the center. Notice how I have. What you don't want is the red line down the edge, because that'll leave a black line on the edge of where it's not engraved. It's perfectly aligned on the right. It's perfectly aligned on the left. If anything, maybe we could increase the width a little bit and overshoot the dog tag so we don't end up with some unengraved black edge. But this is good for right now for sample. Let's close the door and just simply, before we hit engrave, check on marking properties. Two things to keep in mind is speed and step size. For a photo, we should slow it down a little bit. And let's go to 150. We'll try that. And then once that's we now are at a speed of 150 and a step of 50. Speed is obviously the speed of the laser. Step, the best analogy with step is like on an inkjet printer, every time it goes back and forth, how much paper feeds each time the printer advances. So the bigger the number, the bigger the step, the poorer the quality. The lower the step size, you run with a smaller step, you run the risk of over engraving. So it's a balancing act between speed and step. But we'll start at 150 and 50. Everything's aligned. Now we can just simply go up and put the mouse on top of Engrave Now. Click Engrave. Come over to the laser. And we now have a laser engraved tag with the photo that we selected, and it's, for all practical purposes, that's pretty much photographic quality, monochrome. To do the next dog tag, you would simply make certain that that's highlighted, click Delete on the keyboard to remove it, go back up to Import, select the next image, it will come in, there's your next image, and if you go to Element Properties, you want to change the width from 61, we'll go to 18. We've now made it smaller, drag it down front and center. We're going to invert it. We're going to position it. And then we're going to put the tag in the laser. I'll make sure that it's aligned, close the door. Go back and hit Engrave. And we've now just done 2 dog tags in a row, and there's the second one. So as far as element properties in the bottom right, the only thing that you need to be concerned with on that tab is going to be the width of the image. You can play with the number depending upon the size of the images, anywhere from 17 to 20 under width. You do not need to adjust height. The computer will calculate that automatically based upon the aspect ratio. As far as the marketing properties tab, the only thing you really need to worry about, when you're doing text, it's okay to do them fast. Speed on text, the maximum speed is 200 on the laser. With text, do 200. The maximums, with text, you could do your step as much as 90 or 100, and that'll do text in about 5 seconds. With a photo, you probably want a speed of 150 and a step size of around 50 for optimal quality of the photo. That concludes the training for engraving either text and or photos utilizing the YAG laser.